10, Department Recommendation Request from Clerk, Register of Deeds, Karen Spranger. Is Karen here? You can step up to the podium, Karen. So Karen, we have this one-page letter from you, request to the Macomb County Board of Commissioners for legal fees per county charter. If we'd like to have you talk about that, your request. I have a question, like, have you talked to Corp Counsel, and what would another council do that Corp Counsel wouldn't? So I'll go ahead and let you just talk about the letter, though, that your request, please.
Because of the different lawsuits I'm in, corporate counsel would not be considered appropriate because of the other court cases in that manner. In labor law, you do need a specialized attorney to represent me, being in the capacity as the Macomb County Clerk, to represent the lawsuit itself.
Okay. Questions, commissioners? What's that? Yeah. So are you asking for a certain amount of money for a particular law firm or lawyer?
The process that is undergone here is just to use the available funds that would sustain me to get an attorney, and then the process of bringing the attorneys to the board, or I select one within a reasonable time frame, because November 14th is the due date for this particular hearing of this case before the 16th Judiciary Court.
Okay, Commissioner Carabelli, I have you on the list to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Madam Clerk. Couple questions for you. The last time you had asked for funds, and I may be wrong, I think it was about approximately $20,000 for an attorney.
No, that was,
How much was it that you asked the last time?
it was 15.
15,000? Okay. And at that time, I had serious reservations because you didn't know where those funds were going to come from. So the first question I have is that the liability fund, there's available funds in there for you to utilize?
That would be up to the finance department to answer, but if you remember previously, the lawsuits between the Board of Commissioners and Hackle, back at the time you had the lawsuit, there was available funds.
Okay, so you don't know.
So right now, I would have to consult the finance department, which I presented it to you because of the nature of the time frame to approve it. If you need to verify it, the finance person is here to talk on that.
Well, I guess I'm asking you. Did you verify if the funds were available in there?
No, I did not.
Okay. Second question I have, you asked for $15,000 the first time. Now you're asking for $100,000. Is that correct?
That is approximately a ballpark figure that I went back to compare what they asked prior to other lawsuits.
I'm sorry, that who asked?
Hackle and the Board of Commissioners. Back in that lawsuit, if you do a little history and research, they came up with a figure of $100,000. Just asking. Doesn't mean you meet that criteria of $100,000. It's available. And if it's in the liability fund, then it goes through that process. I mean, that's something we could get down to the actual process of that, which I don't have prepared today.
Okay. And I believe Commissioner Chair Rob Majek had asked you, have you gone to Corporation Counsel? And I think you mentioned something to the effect of they don't specialize in it or something to that effect. Is that what?
It's a labor law attorney.
Okay. I'm not an attorney by any stretch of the imagination. And with that said, I have to rely on our attorneys for advice on what we need to do. And since I've been up here, anytime an attorney has been hired, It's been recommendations through a bid process, recommendations directly through Corporation Counsel, who has the expertise of who we should hire and who we shouldn't hire. So I'm personally, as one commissioner, struggling right now of you're asking for $100,000. You don't know if the money's in there yet. And you're asking me personally to make a decision amongst my colleagues. And I'm struggling with that right now. I want to let you know.
I'm just following what charter allows me to request to the Board of Commissioners.
Well, the charter allows you to request in 6.65 that you can also request Corporation Counsel from the Executive's Office to assist you in that process. You may ask. It also says you may ask the Board of Commissioners. So I know where you're talking about in the charter.
Correct.
But with that said, your due diligence hasn't been done yet, has it? You don't know if the funds are available in there? Steve's behind you. I mean,
Well, we could bring them up and ask.
well,
I mean, I can request to bring them up and ask.
okay. That's what I have at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next on the speakers, Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to follow a little bit off of what Commissioner Carabelli was saying. You know, there is a sort of a requirement of you to exhaust options, you know, before you come and ask us to have taxpayer dollars spent on legal fees. And I will remind you that this board has already approved outside counsel for you on another lawsuit. So we're having a lot of tax dollars going into a lot of lawsuits here. Have you contacted Human Resources at all before any of these actions came around? Have you talked to Human Resources at all about the different things that the unions have brought against you?
We have engaged in it and we're far apart.
Have you taken any of their advice?
I've exercised my management right under my right as the county clerk and my statutory responsibilities, and we are far apart.
So you're far apart.
Issues
Okay.
that we are
So-
not sitting down to discuss things, and
Let me ask you this.
I'm being sued by a union in court, and by November 14th, I need to get representation to represent me in this lawsuit.
I understand that, but did Human Resources give you advice? First question, did Human Resources give you advice about the situation?
I don't have any emails or recall them giving me advice as far as attorneys, no.
No, I'm not talking about attorneys. I'm talking about the underlying situation that has caused the union now to bring this lawsuit. Did you have an opportunity to sit down with Human Resources, and did Human Resources at any point give you advice? First, did you go to Human Resources and say, hey, what's this? Why are they coming after me here? And did Human Resources give you advice?
There was no part of that discussion offered to me at that time. I was served with the lawsuit, and I'm responding to it.
Okay, prior to the lawsuit, did you have any opportunity to meet with Human Resources and elicit advice regarding the situation with the employees that were unionized?
I'm not understanding the intent of the actual question to be
Well, the intent of the
specific
question
enough,
is- I'll
because
tell-
there's a lot of issues in my offices as far as general departments being together in one building, how they operate, and how we're short-staffed because of the situation of the move and who's
Let me
going and
direct
doing
you to
what.
let me direct you to answer a question you asked me,
Sure.
and then I'd like you to stay focused on my questions. My question, and my intent of my questions is this: you're asking us to approve taxpayer dollars to support you in defending a lawsuit.
There is a lawsuit filed.
I understand that. Okay, what I need to know is what happened that caused this lawsuit to occur, and what I want to know is if you availed yourself, first of all, because we're going to get to the attorneys in a second, but first of all, did you avail yourself of any of the advice that Macomb County's Human Resource Department would give you regarding the situation with the employees in the union? Did you at any point in your capacity as the clerk avail yourself of any services that Human Resources could have provided you to avoid the lawsuit?
This is not,
It's a yes or no question. Did you go to Human Resources or not? Yes or no?
I would rather take that under advisement because I feel this intimidation just
It's-
from answering a question
It's a
about
simple
a
question.
lawsuit that they filed against me as the county clerk is an action they did.
Okay, so
I'm
then-
responding as the county clerk to have my right exercised.
Okay, well, then
To
I'm going to
get
tell you as
an
a county commissioner,
attorney
hold on, I'm going to tell
to-
you as a county commissioner,
Okay.
then I'm going to assume your answer is no, you didn't go to human resources. So I have to factor that in what I'm going to decide to do here. If you didn't go to human resources, then the next step is this. Did you go to corporation counsel? Macomb County has corporation counsel. You as an elected official have an absolute right, just like I do, if I have a dilemma, to go to corporation counsel and seek their advice. So I'm going to ask you a simple yes or no question. In regard to the actions that have now caused this lawsuit by the union, did you at any point go to corporation counsel and seek their advice?
We are currently in litigation against each other. It does not make sense to go to corporate counsel on this issue when the issue stems from other court cases that are tied in some way, somehow. So independent counsel for me is very important.
Well, before I can
So
give you
the
independent
court
counsel.
costs- The different court cases are different in nature because they're in different courts. However, this court, I am being sued.
Okay.
I sued,
Those are different
and
cases.
then
Those are
they
cases,
sued me,
listen,
and they are different.
they are different cases, and that's exactly my point. In order for me as a commissioner, I have to do due diligence before I decide to spend taxpayer dollars. And I want to make sure, okay, that all options were exercised prior to the lawsuit being filed before I decide to go and give you money. Because here's my concern. Let's say I give you $100,000 to go and talk to your own independent counsel. And what happens if they tell you, you know what? Human Resources told you X, Y, and Z, and you should have followed that. And you know what? If you would have went to corporation counsel, they would have told you X, Y, and Z, and you should have followed that. And that attorney is going to tell you, I can't represent you. Then you're going to go to another attorney, and you're going to go to another attorney, and you're going to go to another attorney. What I'm concerned with, and this isn't personal, we are running a county here. What I'm concerned with is if you did not listen to the advice of Human Resources, if you did not listen to the advice of corporation counsel, and that has caused a lawsuit, it doesn't matter what attorney you go to. Attorneys are going to probably tell you at some point, maybe a law has been violated and there's really nothing we can do about it except do what we're required to do. And I don't want to spend money to have an attorney tell you that. I'm an attorney. You know that. There's plenty of times when people come into my office and I'm pretty much right out honest with them. I'll say, you know what? There's really nothing I can do for you. You can spend a lot of money on me, but at the end of the day, this is how it's going to resolve itself. And I still don't have an answer from you as to whether or not you've talked to Human Resources and they gave you some advice, and I don't have an answer from you if you've talked to Corporation Counsel and they've given you advice. If you're going to take those matters under advisement because you're concerned, then you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to assume your answer is no, and I don't feel comfortable giving you independent counsel. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Duje.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon or good evening. Going off of Commissioner Leonetti's questions, did you go to the Office of County Executive and ask them for direction in all of this?
We are conflicted out. And it's very difficult to discuss matters that are opposite of each other's, the way the office of the clerk's office. I'm just being sued. I'm just asking for representation. The type of attorney I need is a professional in labor law.
Okay.
And if the corporate counsel meets that expectation and they have come to me or we come to each other, then that is something we could sit down and do. But as far as being sued, I answered what I had to do in court. I showed up. The judge said and allowed me to get time to get an attorney, and that's what I'm doing. And
Okay,
in order to go through the process, I read the charter, and I'm coming before you to request under the charter my rights to an attorney to represent me in these law cases.
That's very well said. Now, question. Well, have you gone to Steve Smeagol to check on the funding? You said no, correct?
Correct.
Did you go to HR to talk to him about all this? You said no. Did you go to
We
Corporation
had some
Counsel?
conversations, but we're at an impasse. We're not in agreement,
Okay.
okay?
Corporation Counsel Did you go to the office executive? No. So you haven't talked to any other department, but you are under the opinion that you need $100,000 from a liability fund in order to sue the county, correct?
That's my request.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chair Bob Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Ms. Spranger. Can you enlighten me a little bit as to what you're being sued for?
The paperwork is filed. I didn't get to respond back to it yet because I'm waiting for the attorney to sit down and discuss the matter.
Okay, that's not what I
appropriately.
asked. Do you know what you're being sued for?
It is in violation of the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, so was there any notification before this lawsuit that you had violated the collective bargaining agreement?
No, it's related to the Mertz case that was filed by the Union 412. And that was pending in litigation. And I wrote exceptions to that case.
Okay,
And
so
this sparked off this response of a lawsuit by the other union. Asked me.
so
That's where we're at.
you're saying that with all of these grievances, I believe, what, 22 grievances that you have against you, and that with all these other suits regarding hiring, firing, employment problems, issues, that you've never once sat down and got any advice from Human Resources or independent counsel, even before all the lawsuits? Because I know this has been
No,
going on for
because
quite some time.
The way they work is you get an email and they tell you to show up to a grievance meeting, and under my rights, I should be able to not just show up by myself when there's a group of more people against you on the grievance, and I've asked to have representation to attorney, and I was denied that. And I'm just learning that that's something questionable. I do have a right to have some kind of representation at these meetings.
You have
And
you have an
to
interesting way of
exercise
answering my
fairness
question
in
without
the
answering my
process.
question.
You show up, and if I'm having other responsibilities, there's no way under due process to have an appropriate scheduling of time together. You show up, and you're guilty if you don't come.
So my
So,
question is,
A lot of these grievances,
I'll
I
keep
was
asking
not
the
there
same
to talk.
question. I'll keep asking you the same question. You're saying that with all of these grievances, you've had no opportunity all this time to talk to HR about what you are doing and if it falls within the ordinance, the law of the county, of our charter county. You've had no opportunity to talk to HR about this, to find out if you were acting appropriately or inappropriately. You've had no opportunity to talk to corporation counsel about all of this.
I have talked to HR. I told you we are in total
didn't.
disagreement. So it proceeded to an escalated level of controversy, and it's also to a level out of control. And I'll just be honest.
We can see
Now,
that.
the other issue, in my opinion, is when you are sued in the capacity I am as the county clerk, I should be able to get some kind of representation. And if legal counsel feels they can, or I can choose the attorney who is specialized in labor law and would able to read the contract, interpret the language, and get down to my rights as the manager of this department, and to make decisions that are in that contract to be upheld, then I am doing the right thing as the county clerk, to run the offices and make decisions as the management of that department. And that's basically our argument.
So let me ask you this. I've heard that there's been 22 grievances against you as a clerk, and that never in the history of the, at least the person acting as a union rep right now for quite some time, has the county ever agreed with any of their grievances. And in this case, the county has agreed with all of them. Do you find this to be an individual problem, or can you tell me what the issue is here, what you might see from the big picture, what we should be
I didn't bring
seeing?
the contract to read the exact language
This has
of the
nothing to do with the
article,
contract.
but it's my management right to make decisions in the office and to do the staffing and to implement the task and to live up to the descriptions of your job classification, and everybody does a job.
Okay, so you
And
believe
when
you're...
they start to tell the county clerk, no, I'm not going to do their job, and we go through this grievance process, sometimes it's one-sided, sometimes it's unfair, and sometimes you can get down to changing a policy. And policies are only good if it serves the purpose of harmony in the office, the workforce is doing their job, and we succeed at accomplishing the service for Macomb County as this office was designed to be.
Okay, so do you answer this? It seems to me like you believe that you have unilateral ability to hire and fire and do everything in your office with total disregard for the policies that have been in place for this
A lot
whole
of the
county.
policies are complementary. It's just the difference of the interpretation. That's where we're at with this division.
So you believe your interpretation is better than our HR directors and our corporation counsel?
Then look at the argument of the CBA agreement and what it was designed for, is the manager has the right to manage their office and make decisions. And if I'm the co-employer and the hiring and firing authority, that is part of my total responsibilities in this agreement, then that's what I'm exercising.
Okay.
And I do respect the process, and we're going through the process.
Can I tell you, Clerk Spranger, that you would have far more success in any of your requests if you would stick to the question that's asked and answer that question. You would have a lot more understanding from people if you would actually answer a question that someone actually asked. And that being said, I've had enough. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Commissioner Joe Romano?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Clerk. There's no nice way to say it. I don't want you to think that we're bantering you, and it sounds somewhat like it, and I know that, and I do know that. But just a couple of things that I wanted to mention here that, every county official, everyone here, any county official, elected official, has the right for representation. I mean, that's, I've been doing business as an official elected for many, many, many years, and situations have come up where we have needed counsel. And before we would do anything, we'd go to our immediate either direct city council representation attorneys, or if in that fact our city council representation attorney said, listen, this is an area that we're not experts in, be it labor negotiations or whatever may come up, and they would then come to the council and say to them, we're going to suggest that you get outside counsel for that. But before they would do that, we had gone to them and asked, listen, this is our problem, can you handle it? So in all fairness, you're asking, I'm saying me, but this particular board for that $100,000, and I have to say to you, Ms. Spranger, it's not that I'm saying no or yes. What I'm saying to you is I think you should really approach our corporation counsel, who may have experts in the field that you need, and utilize them. And if they don't, then they would probably suggest to you that maybe we should give you somebody outside the corporation council that's an expert in this, and then come to us for that type of money which you may need. And I think I'd be a little more receptive to that. At this particular point, honestly, I think all other avenues have not been exhausted yet, that you should come to us and ask for that type of money. That's my own personal opinion. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
My response, if I may. The corporate counsel and I are in a lawsuit. And when you're in a lawsuit, it doesn't make sense, if you just think logically, that corporate counsel can represent me in this case independently and non-partial because of the other lawsuits. That's why you have independent counsel. That's why the executive branch has independent counsel. They use the counsel, the legal opinions that I differ with. Now, technically, it should go to the Attorney General's office, when there's an opinion written by the legal department that goes against my statutory responsibility as a county clerk. These are some of the issues that are in the grievances, and I don't want to bring them up because you can read them now. They're all public. They're filed in this court case, and I need to get an attorney in a reasonable time. And that's my goal, is to get representation that I'm entitled to under the charter. And I just am asking you to consider in a reasonable way to have me get legal representation. And if it's conflicted out, because it is a possibility that is the way it works, is that if I'm already in a lawsuit with legal counsel, another lawsuit for them to represent me is a conflict. That's why one of the lawsuits that went to the 16th Judiciary Court was put into another county because of the conflict of interest. They didn't hear it in the county that I am the county clerk for this court. So it had to be moved to another county to be heard. So that's another court case. So that's
Okay,
part
next
of
on
the
the list.
situation I'm in.
Next on the list, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you. Clerk Spranger, I'm trying to truly be patient and understand and listen. When you first got elected, we told you, at any time our door's open, ask questions, we'll be happy to help you. I've heard you answer questions from these commissioners, and I don't know if you really understood what you answered. And I'm going to tell you something. He asked you point blank if you had discussions with labor relations. He asked you point blank, HR.
We did, and we disagree.
But wait, to him, you said that you didn't. You told him you didn't talk to Corporation Counsel.
To
Another
take
commissioner-
their
Let me
advice.
finish. Another commissioner, well, we did talk, but we have philosophy differences. Then you say you can't go to Corporation Counsel because you're in litigation. You can't go to the executive's office because you're in litigation. You're in litigation with this board as well. You are confusing me and using crutches of trying to get something that you're looking for, and I am not sure what you're looking for. Do you realize that you're also in litigation with us?
I do.
But yet you use that as an excuse for Corporation Counsel, you use that as an excuse for the executive's office. You're not clear enough to me to warrant any expenditures of taxpayers' dollars, because you know what? You are charged with a job, and you got responsibilities. But within that responsibility, there are rules that you have to follow, and rules that are set up contractually. You may not like them, but you have to follow them. And our HR department is going to say you are following them or you're not following them. They work for us to make sure that the rules are enacted and they're followed. And if they tell you we got to change ways, then we have to change the ways. You don't like it, you wait till time to renegotiate a contract. You want to change work rules, you work with them to change them. You don't fight them in midstream and ask us to take taxpayers' dollars and expend them on stuff when we already have a staff of attorneys that are on staff that the taxpayers are already paying for. So you're in litigation with us, you're in litigation with the executive's office, you're in litigation, and you're saying Corporation Counsel you're in litigation with. Well, that's all three of us. Yet you're coming to here, and in that, what you said point blank, 6.65 of the charter, you skipped over the executive part and you went right to the commission.
Because of the nature of being sued and the requirement under charter, if the library, the funds were available to all public officials. And if there's a process I'm skipping, then let's go back to the first step. I already said that in the beginning.
The first step is you also answered another
Now,
commissioner, and you
when
said, well,
there's
Corporation Counsel
lawsuits-
can come to me. Now, I'm going to cut you off because you were
Okay.
cutting everybody else off, including myself. You said, well,
I
Corporation
apologize.
Counsel can come to me. Well, finance can come to me. Well, no, you need to go to them. You need to ask them what needs to be done. Not come here and ask for $100,000 of taxpayers' dollars, and you don't even know really what you're going to do with it yet.
It's for attorney fees,
Okay, for attorney fees on rules that,
to get an attorney, to provide me with an attorney. Now, if corporate counsel can represent me, and that's a legitimate question that an attorney of statute, maybe the Attorney General, I'll call him up tomorrow and say, here's the dilemma, here's the circumstances, and what is right for the county clerk to get representation that's being sued in Macomb County. You have an obligation under the charter, and I'm just asking to exercise my right.
You need to do your due diligence as well, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Philcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Clerk, last time you came before us asking for outside counsel, I had a real issue with A, the cost, and B, where you were pulling the funds from. Last time it was special projects, and I asked you what the previous clerk did under special projects, and you had no answer for me. Now this time you're coming for the liability fund. And all these other commissioners have asked you questions about who you've talked to about this issue. Have you talked to anybody about where to get this funding from, or did you just pull the liability fund out of thin air like you did with special projects?
No, special projects, if you look at what she did, she had awards. And when you look at how that system worked, you go to the government, and I think there's a fee you pay, and you write your own awards, and you get nominated, and there's your award. I didn't see the system of being earned like you do if you're a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout. You actually get to do the work, and you get a badge, and you put your time in. That's government itself. If you wanted to pay awards, if you looked at that money, it could have been used for better use than just buying awards to say you accomplished something when the award is written for another purpose and you wrote it.
Like defending yourself even though we have counsel here that's free.
If the council can represent me, nobody has asked that question.
So the liability fund,
So
you're
if that question
saying,
needs to be asked, then that is a legitimate question to ask.
so the liability fund is a more appropriate funding source than special projects.
That's what they did to fund the Board of Commissioners with the Executive Board when they had their disagreement, and that's how they did the funds. I
Okay.
just was doing some of the research in the past budgets and how the registrar and the checks showed how the money went from here to here. I'm not here to get into all that semantically. I'm just here to ask what the charter says I can ask for. And it's very clear I'm being sued, and I need representation, and this.
Chair, I'm going to
amount
call
may
the
not be
question. I'm going to
spent,
call
or
the
it
question
may
for
be
vote,
spent.
Chair, if I may. I'm going to call a question for vote to forward this to the Finance Committee.
Point of information, why would we forward it? We can take the vote right here. If it doesn't pass this committee, it shouldn't go to the finance. It should be. Thank you.
So, calling the question for a vote on this. Yeah, is there a motion on the floor? That's the thing. Motion on the floor is to deny retention of outside independent legal counsel. Is that right? Okay. Is there support? Okay, support. Okay, we'll take a vote on that, commissioners. Yeah, recommendation to the full board. Final vote will be the full board. Okay, please vote on your computer, commissioners. Item passes 11-0.